It's like I don't care about nothing, man. Yeah. Oh,
What's going on? Now we are on to page 4. Now we are going to use the stuff we learned from pages 1 through 3 in order to start doing proofs. So when you do the proofs, we want to make sure that we're taking that knowledge and proving why it's the correct answer. That's the idea of a proof. So yes, let's get into it. So this video here, we're looking at page 4. On this page, you're getting your first introduction into proofs. So proving why something is the answer. Now, number 1 on page 4 says identify a pair of vertical angles. Prove that the vertical angles you identified are congruent. Well, our sets of vertical angles would be 1 would go with 4 because they are directly across from each other, so that would be vertical angles. And 3 would go with 2. So those are the two choices that we have when we do this. Now it said just identify a pair, so we didn't have to find both of them, we just had to find one of them. But it's still good to know what all of them are. So I'm going to say 1 is congruent to 4 and 2 is congruent to 3. Now, there is a reason why I know this. So they want us to prove it. The way that we're going to prove it is through one of our theorems. Now, on page 3, you had one that said vertical angles theorem. It said on that page, it says if two angles are vertical angles, then they are congruent. So the way that we prove that this is the right answer is because of vertical angles theorem. So this would prove it because we figured out which theorem actually lets us know that they are congruent.
That is correct.
So this is your first proof. Ooh, mark the date. You'll always remember it.
Doc, none of us can remember anything from last night. Remember?
Now, when you have a proof, it's always going to have a given in what you're trying to prove. So, in a proof, you have statements and reasons. The first reason is always, 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 always going to be given. The first statement is whatever's given to you. In this case, we were given two things. That's why there's two of them. So the first thing that was given to us is that angle 5 and angle 6 are complementary. I'm going to switch out pens since that one doesn't seem to want to work. Are complementary. That was the first thing given to us. So, as you might be able to guess, the next reason is given, so we look at the next thing that was given to us. So the measure of angle 4 plus the measure of angle 5 is equal to 90 degrees. So, oops, sorry about that. The first two things were given. Notice the last thing that you're trying to prove, the last statement is what you're trying to prove. So no matter what, you should always at least get partial credit on any proof, because you know you start off with the givens and you end with what you're trying to prove. So I will fill in the rest of this now. So 5 and 6 are complementary. If I did 5 plus 6, they would equal 90 degrees. I am being told that 4 and 5 equal 90. So if 4 and 5 are complementary, they already told us that equals 90 degrees when I add them together. So for number 3, we're going to say the definition of complementary angles. Because we were already told that 4 and 5 together make 90. So if we know what complementary means, we know that when you add something together, two angles together, they should equal 90 if they are going to be complementary. So now the last one, what we are trying to prove, we're trying to prove that 6 is congruent to 4. So we know this because we're saying that these are supposed to be interchangeable. So there's a couple different answers that I would accept for this last one. One of the theorems that we had on page 3 was congruent complements theorem. That's one of the answers I could have chosen and been correct. I personally also would have accepted substitution. That is another one that I would have accepted. So when you are doing proofs, just know that there's not always one specific correct answer. Sometimes there is, but other times, actually a lot of times, especially for when you're with whatever you're trying to prove, sometimes you'll have multiple answers that could be marked correct. So make sure you're going over the ones that we did on pages 1 through 3. So that's the end of the video. Now with this one, I do actually want you to do some practice. I want you to do page 4, number 2. So I want you to do the one that we skipped on page 4. Now that being said, there is today your success to me would be if you see a proof, you always start with what's given. So in the statement, you would be actually telling me what was given to you. For the reason, you would write given. So that is the intro to proofs, because you should know that is the very first thing you put in there. You should always get at least partial credit if those are left blank for you. So, but that's the end of the video again. Have a great rest of the day.